Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the walls of the modern store, literally, to explore retail store IQ.
Right.
And this really radical idea that the physical shop floor is transforming. It's moving from just a static collection of shelves into something responsive, a living, sensing organism.
It's a huge shift.
The vision we're tasting today is a store that is, constantly sensing, reasoning, and then acting in near real time. It's an incredibly compelling picture, but here is the uncomfortable truth at the core of this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
A store can sense everything and still manage to change nothing.
That's the trap. All this data, but no action.
Exactly. The frontier is no longer achieving simple awareness. It is all about achieving coordination.
Right.
Data is just useless until it actively reshapes what you, the customer, experience. That means dynamically moving shelves, directing labor, shifting inventory, and altering the customer flow itself.
It needs a nervous system.
A nervous system. That's the perfect way to put it.
And that's our mission for you today. If we want that decisive, continuous action, we can't settle for fragmented data.
Right.
So we're going to trace the path from that initial signal all the way to the final decisive action. We'll be unpacking the 9 distinct layers of intelligence required to get to that coordination.
Looking at what question each one answers.
Exactly. This is about turning all those scattered signals into one coherent, impactful strategy.
Let's start at the beginning of the journey then. We'll focus on the most immediate signals, what's happening right now inside the 4 walls. And we have to start with the store's felt reality.
The emotional pulse.
The emotional pulse. And this involves systems like true rating, which captures the store's most fragile signal.
Which is how a customer feels in the moment.
In the moment. Not 2 days later in an email survey, but right after checkout, right after a staff interaction, the second the transaction closes.
It's instant emotional telemetry. It reacts the moment friction appears.
And that immediacy has to be the key, right?
Oh, it is. Traditional surveys, they're retrospective. They tell you about the problem that happened last week.
When it's too late.
Way too late. True rating tells you the coffee machine just broke, or the line is moving too slow, before the customer walks out the door and posts a scathing review.
So it's not trying to explain the why of the problem.
Not initially. It's meant to immediately identify the where. It stops that moment of frustration from becoming, a permanent data point in some quarterly report.
Okay, so we have the stated or felt emotion, but we know what people say they feel and what they actually do can be 2 very different things.
Worlds apart sometimes.
So we need to shift from that emotional pulse to what the sources call the behavioral truth.
How the body moves.
Exactly. This brings us to tools like Uncrowd.
Mm-hmm.
Uncrowd measures physical reality, where customers slow down, where they hesitate and browse, and crucially,
Where they give it up.
where they abandon their journey altogether, putting a basket down and just walking out.
And this is truly crucial ground truth. What's so fascinating here is the resistance retailers often have to this data.
They don't want to see it.
They believe their store layout is intuitive, that their product placement is optimal, but the cold, hard movement data,
Yeah.
it often contradicts those internal beliefs.
It's the unbiased truth.
It is. Customers reveal their true priorities, their actual friction points, through their movement long before they ever leave a comment. It tells you the intended flow is broken, even if they were too busy to complain.
So if the emotional pulse tells us how they feel and the behavioral truth tells us where they stop, we have a pretty good picture of the internal environment.
A very good one.
But the problem we mentioned earlier is that a store doesn't exist in a vacuum. If sales drop, how do we know if it's our fault or if, something external has changed entirely?
This is the next level of intelligence.
It has to be. And that brings us to contextual intelligence, the need to look outside our 4 walls. We're talking about tools like iGenie.ai. This platform gives the store situational awareness by examining the broader public environment trending reviews, shifts in search behavior, public discourse around products or categories.
And this answers that critical differentiating question you just posed.
Is it us or is it them?
Is this issue unique to this single location, a local staffing problem, or is it a signal of something changing across the entire industry?
That's a huge distinction.
It's everything. Without this, you risk fixing a symptom, like a slow checkout, when the real problem is that public interest in the product itself is quietly shifting because of some new viral trend online. You need to know the macro forces affecting your micro performance.
And speaking of external forces, the toughest competition isn't usually the one right across the street.
Not anymore.
It's the experience you had last week on Amazon or at that hyper-efficient new pop-up shop.
Right.
We need relative intelligence.
Absolutely.
The sources stress this point again and again. Customers never, ever compare a store to its internal strategy deck or last year's performance.
No, they compare it to the best, fastest, cheapest, or most convenient experience they had last week. Anywhere.
And that's where a tool like Nimble steps in. It tracks competitor pricing, promotions, assortment changes, and how those competitors are positioning themselves.
All in near real time.
Which is how you prevent what the sources call false confidence.
That's a great term for it. You could be hitting all your internal targets. Maybe your customer satisfaction scores are stable.
You think you're winning.
Exactly. But if a competitor just undercut you on the top 5 selling items or launched a compelling new loyalty program, the customer is going to notice immediately.
So performance is always relative.
Always. It's relative to what the rest of the market is doing, not just what you're doing in isolation.
Okay. That covers what is happening now, both inside and outside. But the smartest stores aren't just reacting to today.
You're getting ready for tomorrow.
Which means the final sensing layer has to be pure anticipation, foresight. We need to listen to the early whisper before the trend.
I love that phrase.
Me too. Because too many retailers wait for a trend to hit the mainstream, and by then they are already too late. Tembi.io focuses on what they call weak signals.
Things that feel insignificant.
Exactly. Emerging microbrands, niche social media conversations, subtle category shifts that seem like nothing right now, but are often the future market-defining elements.
This is true strategic readiness. It's about preparing for expectations that customers haven't even fully articulated yet.
Preparing for a question that hasn't been asked.
Precisely. If there's a growing conversation about, say, specialized ethical sourcing that only a few thousand people are having right now, Tembi surfaces that.
So the store can start talking to suppliers or adjusting shelf space.
Before that niche conversation defines the category a year from now, the intelligent store responds before the question is even consciously asked by the mass market.
Okay, this is fantastic. We have 5 distinct types of data now: emotion, behavior, context, competition, and foresight, all feeding into the system.
That's a lot.
It sounds like an overwhelming amount of information, a flood of noise that could paralyze any manager. So how does the store actually process all that and turn it into something actionable?
This is the cognitive layer, the brain.
We need synthesis. And that's the job of Data Genie. This is the part that connects all those scattered, sometimes conflicting signals.
It makes sense of the noise.
Right. For example, if True Rating shows high emotional distress at checkout, but Uncrowd shows fast, efficient traffic flow, why the disconnect?
Data Genie tries to build that coherent explanation. And this is where the real difficulty lies. Without this synthesis, insight remains utterly fragmented.
You have different teams looking at different reports.
You'd have one team looking at behavior data, another at sentiment, and neither seeing the connection. Data Genie's role is to help teams move past simple correlation.
Like sales were down when it rained.
Exactly, and start to see the actual cause. Sales were down because the competitor across town launched a weather-related promotion we missed. If you can't synthesize the input, decision-making just stalls.
So now we are in the action phase. We've got the data, we have the analysis. Where does that insight become visible to you, the actual shopper?
It has to hit the floor.
It has to start with the most fundamental element of the store, the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to OmniStream, or assortment intelligence. This translates those synthesized demand signals directly into physical space decisions.
How products are placed, how they're grouped, which items get priority.
The insight means very little if the physical display doesn't change to reflect it.
This is that critical moment of physical adaptation. If Data Genie says that based on context and competitor pricing, there's massive latent demand for, I don't know, blue athletic socks in the next 2 weeks.
OmniStream tells you where to put them.
It instantly optimizes the shelf placement, maybe moving them from the back corner to the primary display. But as we know, the best shelf placement in the world fails if the product isn't actually there.
Right, which brings us to the intelligence of movement, inventory flow. This addresses retail's persistent multi-billion-dollar problem.
Having the right product in the wrong place.
Exactly. Detail 8 introduces Yidistry, which is known as circulatory intelligence.
About that.
It identifies demand imbalance and automatically triggers product redistribution across locations. If your Denver store is suddenly seeing high demand for winter coats while your Dallas store has a surplus,
Your distry moves that inventory without human intervention.
reducing waste, avoiding markdowns, and eliminating missed sales.
That's the thinking store's metabolism in action. It doesn't just sense demand, it instantly responds with product movement. Product flows dynamically to where it is needed most, instead of just sitting in a warehouse.
So we have the synthesis, the dynamic shelves, and the intelligent inventory flow. But let's be realistic, all of these complex systems rely on a single human bottleneck.
The store team on the floor.
And isn't getting store teams to adopt another new piece of technology or another app the hardest part of all this? We're talking about data fatigue.
We are.
How do you guarantee execution when managers are already overwhelmed?
That is the ultimate and most important question. Insight that doesn't reach the floor is just, well, it's expensive trivia.
It's a waste of money.
A total waste. That's why the final piece, Corso, exists. It recognizes that store teams don't need more data. They need prioritized action.
Okay, so it cuts through the noise.
It translates all the highly complex insights from Data Genie and the rest of the stack into clear, simple, accountable tasks.
Give me an example.
Instead of telling a manager, your performance correlation with competitor pricing is 0.8, it says, task, move item X to aisle 3 display by 3 p.m. Estimated sales uplift, $500.
Ah, so it closes the gap between knowing and doing.
It ensures the entire system works by focusing on tangible, prioritized execution. It's the last mile.
That is such a powerful arc. So let's quickly revisit the full nervous system we just built. We started with the store sensing the emotional pulse via true rating.
And the behavioral truth via uncrowd.
Then we layered on external awareness. iGenie.ai giving context, Nimble setting the competitive baseline.
And Tembi.io, surfacing the early whispers of what's next.
Then the cognitive layer, that iGenie, synthesized all that complexity into a coherent, actionable story.
And finally, the store executes. OmniStream reshapes the shelves, Udistry moves the product intelligently.
And Corso ensures the human element acts on the highest priority tasks.
That's it. That's retail store IQ in motion.
And it is so much more than just a series of new reports or dashboards. It's the creation of a unified, highly adaptive store that continuously listens, understands, adapts, and responds.
It responds to both the shopper and the world around it.
The source materials suggest something I found really interesting, that the store has always been talking.
But now it knows how to answer and how to change its own reality.
So as you walk into your local store next time, consider the full implications for you, the shopper, when every single element of your experience, from how you feel at the checkout to the exact placement of that product on the shelf, is adapting in real time based on this complex, coordinated analysis.
And ask yourself this: what happens when the physical store essentially gains the capacity for instinct? When it starts moving, flowing, and anticipating your need before you even realize you have them? That is the new retail frontier.